Hey, happy Monday out there. Hope everybody's having a great Monday, my mental health warriors. We got a super fancy, super exciting show tonight. I'm so glad we got Lynn with us, and we also got James, our guest, and we'll get to them in a second. But before that, you see the QR code up there in the upper left hand corner that for Rees Across America. Super proud to be part of them. You know, every year they ensure that those Rees are memorialized on the veterans' graves that have passed on. Of course, I'm in Italy, but my area is Virginia because I'm originally from Virginia, and so that's for Arlington Cemetery. So for as little as $5 to $10, you can donate. That scan that QR code and donate. It also helps them to continue that mission to ensure that those wreaths are placed in those gravestones. And what an amazing program to be part of! Along with that, as you know, is Wreaths Across America Radio. We plays my podcast at Fridays at 8 p.m. and Sundays at 10 p.m. And it's super easy to find. Just download the iHeartRadio app, the TuneIn app, or the Odyssey app and search for Rees Across America Radio for not only my great podcast, but all the great podcasts and shows that they have on. Along with that, you know, we're part of the Veterans Trash Talk Network. We have Veterans to Mortgage that are also a sponsor. You can scan on that QR code. You know, they're talking about interest rates going down. So it'd be a great time to refinance. If you bought a house last couple of years and interest rates are a little high, you can save a lot of money by, you know, if the interest rates drop by 2%, 1%. On that refi. And also with that, if you're planning on moving or if you're getting out of the military, you go PCS to Paradise, you can scan that QR code there and they will help you find your dream home. Hey, maybe you want to move to Italy like I'm living in Italy because, you know, one thing I real about here in Napoli is we don't have winter. So even though it's February, we're starting to move into spring out here. So it's quite great. But hey, with that, James, we'll get to you in a second. But Lynn, how you been doing? And give us a quick update on you.
Hey, what's up, everybody? So, as you guys know, I am a federal employee. So, we've been dealing with a lot of new changes, and some good, and then, some that are trying. But if you are part of the federal workforce, I just want to tell everybody, like, hang in there, keep working with integrity and honor. We are hard workers, despite what everyone else says, and just do what you got to do, and then just wait for further instructions, because that deferred resignation, who knows, like, there's a lot of things out there out online, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
uncertainty. But just keep doing what you're doing, and we'll all get through this.
Yeah, absolutely. With change, things are
Mhm.
going to change, right? And some people are for change, and some people aren't. But hey, listen, just like in any organization that you work for, there's always people that are doing the right thing, and there's always people that aren't doing the right thing. And so just take everything a
Right.
grain of salt, protect yourself, be smart. If you're told to go in the office and do something, go in the office till somebody of otherwise authority tells you what to do differently, and then you don't set you up for failure. You don't set
Mhm.
yourself up to be stressful. But hey, with that, our
Yeah.
guest James is on. James, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? And then before we jump into your story, because you have a truly amazing story of hope and survival that I think our audience will be very moved by. I want to talk about a little incident that happened here last night that we talked about before the show. Because we do talk about PTSD and triggers, and those things can happen at any time. But with this, James, won't you introduce yourself to the audience and let them know why you're here and what you're doing, and then we'll get more into your story later on.
Hey everyone, my name's James Coombs. I'm the founder of Heroes of America and Beyond. It's a nonprofit organization that I just recently started. The whole sole purpose of that is to honor our military veterans for their services and sacrifices. Um, and it's just what I do with that is I designed various challenge coins, and anybody that's been in the military knows about those. And I usually carry half a dozen or so around with me. And as I meet a veteran on the street or I talk to someone, a veteran, I hand up coin just to thank them for their service. To me, it's very important that
Absolutely.
that we thank our veterans. I'm third generation military. Both my grandfather served, my dad served, my stepdad served, and I served. So I have a long family history of military service. Um, but yeah, it started a couple years ago, as a thing to honor those four men that came before me, and it's just grown way much more. Hence the word beyond what my original vision was for what I do.
And James, you're a Navy veteran, correct? You were in the
Yes, sir.
Navy. How long were you in the
Mhm.
Navy?
I enlisted in the delayed entry program in 1987.
Okay.
Went on active duty in 1988. Um, I was so excited to go and serve the military that I was in boot camp the night my high school class graduated, and I'm thinking, what the heck did I just do?
Wow.
It kind of ticked off my mom, but oh well. I was an active duty reservist, so I was a reservist, but I was on active duty for 3 years.
Yeah.
And then I was on active reserve
Mhm.
duty for 3 years, so I was a total of 6 years, 4 different ships.
So what did you do? What was your
I was
rate?
a operations specialist. I worked in the Combat Information Center. The
Don't
best way I can just
don't
no,
lie. Me
were you an
too.
OS? Awesome.
I was an OS,
Yep.
AIC
And
type.
the best way I describe that to people that don't know is I say, the opening scene to the first Top Gun, the guy that's talking, that's on the radar screen. That's generally what we do.
That's
Yeah.
me. You don't say that all
He
the
does say that
time.
all the
Yep.
time.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm getting
That's
I'm
so
getting goosebumps.
funny.
Matter of fact, that's
Yeah, I always tell them, I'm like, you ever watch a Navy movie and those people in the dark room who knows exactly what's going on and like the mission and that stuff in the radars?
yep.
That's us.
I tell people that we actually, and when I went through A school, we had a full week of learning how to write backwards and upside down on the status board so the other people on the other side could see them.
So I didn't know they had that OSs as active duty reserves.
It was something my recruiter did. I don't know why, but on all my paperwork it says USNR.
Mhm.
So I was.
Yeah, because my husband was the same way. So what he was admin, so he worked with the reservist full time. So he was full time support for the reservist. But then his and his ID card at the time it would say USNR and then USN active duty. So it was really confusing to people. They're like, well, is he reservist or is he active duty? It's both. He was the active duty component for the
Yeah.
reservist.
You have the here in Charleston. There's the USS Aircraft Carrier USS Yorktown. My dad served 2 tours of
Mhm.
Vietnam on that, and so he was a back then they called him radarman. So I did the exact same
Yeah.
job he did, and I've been here 15 years,
Oh, that's
and I've only been
cool.
on that ship one time because when I went through CIC, sorry, getting a little emotional here. I actually broke down and started crying because I was walking the same spaces my dad had been, and so it was. So I can't bring myself to go back to it. Eventually, I will, but
That's really special. And I know that feeling because my dad served on the USS Nimitz and then I served
oh,
on the
nice.
USS Nimitz. So I felt kind of honored. Yeah, I kind of felt honored to walk in like, in their
Hmm.
footsteps.
Hey,
So
James, in 1987, what month did you join?
I joined. It was I think September of '87. As soon as I hit my senior year in high school, because I had just turned 17.
Okay. So
So
I actually joined the service March 5th, 1987, and I retired in 2021.
oh
So I did
wow.
34 years in service. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So I was teasing you on the chat saying 1987. Wow, you're old, James. But I was
Yeah.
17 when I joined too. I went to basic training. I was Army in between my junior and senior year on the delayed entry program. And then
Hmm.
and then I came back and finished my senior year. And then I went to my MOS training, which I was aviation. So I started out on the Cobra helicopter, migrated to the Apache and then the OH-58 Delta. And then
Nice.
I became a warrant officer and retired as a CW4. So
Nice. So you're a
yeah.
Mustang.
So I was a ghost person until I retired, and then people can see me now.
Nice.
That's what warrant officers do. We disappear, except for come around the coffee pot every now and then.
There you go. There you go. No, it's just something like I said. I joined the military just because it was a long family history,
Yeah,
and
mhm.
it's just something that I felt I not that I had to do, something I wanted to do,
yeah,
and I regret getting out. I don't because I would have retired at 38 with a
yeah,
full pension, military pension.
yeah.
Full
Hmm.
pension. Now, were you in Desert Storm?
Operation Desert Shield. We were
Desert
the battle
Shield.
group I was with was had the Missouri with us, and it was her last cruise before she decommissioned. So we were on a show cruise, and we were headed to Australia, and on August 2nd, 1990, which happened to be my mother's 40th birthday, Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, and we just got message traffic as soon as we were unwrapping. As soon as you're finished unwrapping, head due north, best possible speed, and that's all we knew. Uh,
Mm.
the aircraft carrier and the
Wow.
Ticonderoga class cruiser beat us there by 2 days
Wow.
because they just
So not the USS Missouri that's on display
Mhm.
as a museum. That one, or the
Yep.
one in Hawaii, right?
And I actually got a
Wow.
picture somewhere during that
Yeah.
cruise. We were about 200 yards off her bow, and she did a full 9-gun broadside
Hmm.
of the 16-inch guns.
Wow, that's
Wow.
Yeah.
so cool.
So yeah,
That's the USS Mersey. That's the one that Japan surrendered on, right?
yep. It's the
Yeah.
one Japan surrendered on.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. And I'm from Missouri, so go figure.
There you go.
I'm originally from Missouri.
Yeah, and I actually had the chance when we left we were boarding tankers for the embargo, and in December of 1990 we were relieved, and the Missouri was actually looking for OSs to go TAD to serve because they were short, and I turned it down. I had a chance to serve on the Missouri in a combat zone, and I turned it down. I went
Wow.
home instead.
Wow.
I kick myself in the butt for that every day now too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's always,
What was your NEC as a OS?
Excuse me.
What was your specialty as a OS? Like I'm a AIC Top Gun.
I liked anti-submarine warfare. I was a
Okay.
guru
Hmm.
on the chart plots for ASW.
Yep.
Funny story with that
Yep.
is I was wanting to go to ASAC school, anti-submarine warfare air controller school, and I was
Right.
sitting with the controller during we were doing some war games, and he said, "Hey, I got to go use the head. Just listen to the radio. If the pilot gets in trouble, give him bearing and range to the ship." Okay. Well, as soon as he left, the pilot said that
Hmm.
they were scanning the sea and they picked up a possible submarine. They
Oh
requested
dang.
permission to release a simulated weapon. Watch officer said, "Tell him to go ahead." And I was like, yeah, do what you got to do." And they got it killed when he came back.
Hmm.
When the officer came, or the petty officer came back, he said, "What happened?" I said, "We killed a sub." The pilot came back and he's like, "Who the freak?" And he used some, was that on the radio? And I said, "Me." He's, "Don't ever do that again." But yeah, it was just
Yeah.
fun. I loved being out at sea. Anybody that's been out,
Yeah, because there's certain code words that you're supposed to use. You can't just
yeah.
say, yeah, let
And he
it.
understood, and he's like, "Okay," and yeah, it was just funny. Just had a blast.
Hmm.
But
so
That's
James, you did
awesome.
6 years in the Navy and you got out. What did you do when you got out of the Navy? And then, you have a pretty powerful story. Feel free to talk about as much of it as you want to, as a little bit of it. But I really think, myself as a suicide survivor, and somebody's made its life mission after my attempt, well, several years after my attempt. But, I believe I survived for a reason, and I made it my life passion to continue that, to let people know that it's okay not to be okay, and it's okay to have
yeah,
bad days
absolutely.
and all that. And it's so important. Sorry. But with that, tell us, a little bit about your story, because, we know that personal stories of people who've come back from the brink many times really resonates. And you really don't know out there any veterans out there who you might be helping, because, one thing Lynn and I have been talking about, January and February is kind of a downer month, right? Because there's not a whole lot going on. The holidays are coming up. Maybe you overspent and you're stressed out. But with that, James, tell us a little bit about your personal story, because I know you making those coins have a deeper meaning than just honoring veterans and stuff. Because I think it's also a healing process for you, with your story. So please share as much of that, after you get out of the Navy, and then talk about your attempts if you want, as much detail as you feel comfortable in doing, obviously.
It started a little bit before. My dad, for most of my childhood, my dad's I'm a junior. Most of my childhood was addicted to drugs and alcohol.
Hmm.
Um, Fortunately, in 2003, when he passed away, he was just about to celebrate his 24th year of sobriety.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
but my stepfather, growing up, was just, he was verbally and mentally abusive towards me and my brother, sometimes physical. And we were told that, we'd never get anything right. We'd always do anything wrong. So with that, I'm very self-conscious about what I do and how people perceive me. And, went enlisted in the Navy. That's how it started. When I got out, I had a few small odd jobs and was just kind of bouncing around. And I landed my dream job. Well, I became a police officer in California. Moved. My dream job was to work as a police officer in a small southern town when I first saw the Andy Griffith Show. Go figure that one. And so I moved out to South Carolina, and I was a police officer. in a small town called Harleyville, where there was 2 patrolmen, the chief, and a detective. That was it.
Oh wow.
It was, you could patrol the whole town at idle speed at 20 miles an hour and still do everything. Um, just some, just for some of that, I ended up transferring to a different town, and I got terminated because of some political business. And then I bounced around a few other jobs, and I lost a job that I really wanted, over the road truck driving. And it was my 3rd attempt at committing suicide. I don't know if we can. I'm sorry if we're not supposed to say that. I
You
took a
can
bunch of.
you can say
I,
however
I
you want
took
No,
to
you
say
can
it. It
say it.
doesn't matter.
I took a bunch of pills. Got a phone call from a friend just wondering where I was at, and I was driving, and I was driving home, and luckily, what saved me there was the police officers, the sheriff's deputies that showed up were the ones that always backed me up when I was getting into some crap, as far as chasing people down in this small town. Whenever I worked, they were always within 10 minutes. So they were the deputies that were there were the ones that I knew very well. The EMS crew that showed up was the EMS crew that I knew very well. So God, all I can say is God brought the right people to me at the right time. I spent 10 days in the hospital, the Behavioral Health Hospital, and I was committed for 10 days.
Hmm.
Um, Learned a lot about myself, and learned it's okay to get frustrated. It's okay to get upset, and it's
Yeah.
okay to feel down. The big thing for me is I have trouble asking for help. I have trouble reaching out and telling
Yeah.
people that I need
Yeah.
help. But I learned that there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with admitting, hey, I can't handle this. I need help. I need somebody to talk to, and that's what I learned in there. And that was about 13 years ago. Um, and since then, I write. It just, when I get frustrated and I get down, and it happens every day. You get frustrated and you get down, but you just got to reach out to somebody, and you got to reach out to, and I pray sometimes and ask for help. And it's, sorry if I'm stumbling, but it's a learning process for me. Is I've always been the one people go to, but I got to realize that I've got to just suck it up and say, you know what, I need help. I can't do this myself.
Yeah,
And
that's a hard realization to come to because, like you, James, I took a bunch of sleeping pills, and everybody who follows the podcast knows my story, and I'm not going to go into it because this isn't obviously about me. But I understand that, and I understand. I grew up on a farm. We were farm boys. Hunting, fishing, lived off the land, and, my dad died when he was 74, and I never saw him cry once. And so when I was having my issues and problems, I didn't even know if I knew how to talk with somebody about it, how to even ask for help, as silly and as stupid as that sounds, because I didn't understand what I was going through. And, when you enter therapy, and of course I was command directed in therapy, so I just lied to my therapist. And if you don't trust your therapist or can open up to them, they're not going to be able to help you. And you just continue this circle of a downward spiral, and you can probably admit to it, James. Crap doesn't happen to you when things are going good. It's a snowball effect when things start going bad. And that's just like you were saying, you have to learn how to stop that snowball effect. And sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's hard.
well, I used to, when I get before I got, and it's the first time I've ever going to say this, got committed, because I was court ordered for 10 days at the hospital.
Yeah.
I used to punch things. I used brick walls, everything else, because the pain that I felt from hitting something or inanimate object, it's to the point where my right hand is permanently swollen. It took away the pain that I was feeling in my heart and in my mind, and so it briefed that. I was self destructive, and eventually led up to the 3rd suicide attempt. And luckily, like I said, God put the right people at the right time in my path, and I went to the hospital, and I've learned. And I tell people, and matter of fact, I'm sharing this more and more. My district manager, which I've worked for 6 years now, never knew this, and I just told him today that I had tried to commit suicide 3 times, and he's like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
So I'm actually opening
Yeah.
up more, and it's okay to share that, um, with people, because if somebody can learn from my experience or what has helped me, and just prevent one person, then anything that I've ever gone through is well worth it. And but part of my healing process, and part of my process of just keeping sane, basically, is these coins that I started designing two
Yeah.
years ago. As I said, it was a way to honor the 4 men that served before me. But I mean, I just sit there. Last Saturday I sat there for 6 hours and designed 2 different coins. I sent them off to the coin company, and I got proofs back. That for me, I enjoy doing it. I've had people ask me to design coins for them. They want to pay me for it. And I was like, no, just give me 2 coins. That's all I ask, because that's
Yeah.
just it's therapeutic for me. If I'm making any sense on that, it just helps
No,
me
you
out.
do, because we talk about that, is that you have to find something to distract your mind, right? And so when you have
Right.
suffered trauma, childhood trauma, any other trauma, it always comes back. But you have to find a way, in a sense, that gives you peace and gives you joy, right? And it doesn't matter what it is. I enjoy exercise. I'm lucky I'm still able to exercise.
Mhm.
So I run. I lift weights and I do things like that. But to me, that's my relax time, right?
Hmm.
Your
Therapy for me. I
therapy.
work in an Italian kitchen here in
Yeah.
Italy. I work part time at a restaurant. That's something I've always wanted to do my whole entire life, and I'm so lucky to be able to do that. But that just gives me something, an out, right? So you have to find that, and you have to be able to find peace while you're doing that. Lynn, I know you do many things too.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it several times. You had like it's so hard to find your
Mhm.
footing and where your purpose. Like, what am I doing here? Like, especially after you get out the
Yes.
military, like you're so trained to do all these things, and you're used to being around a unit, a company, a division, a ship. You're so used to being around, surrounded by like-minded individuals already, and then when you get out, like you're just kind of isolated, sort of, until you find your tribe again or you find your purpose. And so we've talked about this on the show. We've talked about it on TikTok. This is
Yeah.
how I
Hmm.
met James. I met him on Vet
Hmm.
Nation's cards on a live TikTok. And like what we do is the same thing we're doing on here is just shooting the shit and finding our tribe. And once you find your people and you find that passion of what you're passionate about, it's definitely a healing process. It's definitely therapy. So for me, this is my
And
therapy.
going with that is, getting on his lives in the morning or his Discord, and talking to people and sharing with
Hmm.
people. It's just I'm opening up more and more about my experience, and the fact that I tried to commit suicide 3 times, and came very close the last time. Um, and my thought is just, like I said, designing the coins. And my thought is, if my story or what I've gone through can help one person, then it's well worth it. The big thing I had to learn is, don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to
Yeah.
ask for help, because to me, if you're able to ask for help, that's the biggest thing for me, is that shows, what, everybody is worth it. Everybody's worth help. Everybody's worth being here.
Yeah.
But while we're talking about this, I designed one coin that kind of deals with that specific. It's um, it deal. This is, if I can show. I can go ahead and show
Yeah.
that.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is the coin
Mhm.
right here.
Yep.
It's
Wow.
"We are here for you," and the soldier carrying the soldier is 3D, and then just on the back, it's just got the Veterans Crisis Line number
Yeah.
998.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Um, these, part of what prompted me to start designing those is the third Tuesday of every month. I got invited through the church that I go to. Um, we meet with some community members and some people from the Veterans Administration, and the whole purpose of that 2 hour meeting is just, how can we reach out to veterans and let them know that they are worth it. They're worth our time. They're worth our support,
Yeah.
and stop that number, because it's not 22 a day anymore. It's way well above that. And and
Oh yeah.
the money that I've spent designing that coin and getting it made, if it saves one, because I give it to counselors to give to their patients, and if it just has one veteran or one person, because anybody can use that 998 or 988.
988. Yep.
Yeah, if it just one person uses it and it saves them from doing what they're thinking about doing, then there's no amount of money that's not worth it.
Oh, absolutely. And if you don't want to dial, you don't want to call 988, you can also text crisis to 741-741, and you can talk to a crisis intervention person free of charge, whether you're military or not.
Mhm.
And so those are important numbers to have. I have my season 1 T-shirt. I had that on the back, the crisis number. And of course, now we're in season 5, and my T-shirts now I have on the back of it. It says, to the person behind me, you are a warrior, you are worthy, and you matter. The person in front of you, and I get so many comments from that as I walking around. Even in Italy, people thank me for that shirt or thank
Nice.
me for that message. Because it is important. Because I think for a lot of people, especially when you're going through a lot, you don't think you're worthy and you don't think you matter. And that's the problem. And we have to get people to realize that no matter what you're going through or what you've been through in your past, you absolutely matter and you absolutely are
Exactly.
worthy, and you're worthy of happiness and you're worthy of being here. And I think sometimes we forget that. And it's always good to get that nice reminder.
Oh, exactly. Um, so like I said, I'm going to show you a couple other coins if that's okay.
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Sure, whatever you want, man.
This is the coin. This is a 2.25 inch coin. This is the one I started with last year. Or it's just a big United States military
Oh,
veteran,
cool.
Mm-hmm.
and I'm trying to work. And then just on the back, it just says thank you for your service. Okay.
Nice.
To date, I've probably handed out 300 or 400 of these. Because I usually carry. I don't make those anymore. This is the current veterans coin that I have.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Oh,
I like that
cool.
one.
Oh, that's a cool one.
And
Yeah.
then it's got all 6
Yeah.
symbols, and yes, Space Force is on there because they're a branch of the service now. Um, I try to carry 5 or 6 of these with me everywhere I go, just because you never know when you're going to run into a veteran. And sometimes I see
Mhm.
somebody, and I say, "Hey, you ever serve?" And they're like, "Yeah." And so I talk to them, and what I get from it is sometimes I get a picture, sometimes I don't. Is
Yeah.
listen to their story, listen to the pride in their voice
Right.
that serve their country. I've had a couple very memorable moments. I do a lot of work on Joint Base Charleston, and there was just a young airwoman, airman, however you want to say it, just out of school. This is a
Ear
woman that's
person. No.
air person. Thank you. That's 18 years old. She's guarding the base, guarding the people that are serving to protect us, and she's 18 and she did that. So I gave her. She actually got one of the original coins. And I gave her to her, and she's like, "This is the first coin that she's ever seen. She's heard about them, never had one." Um, the one that tugs at my heartstrings the most is just going through a Walgreens and saw a guy that said Vietnam veteran, approached him and said, "Hey, when did you serve? What did you do?" And he said, he was in the army. And I said, "Sir, I have something I want to give you." And he says, "What's that?" And I showed him the coin, and he started crying. I was like, "Dude, don't cry
Oh.
because you're going to make me cry."
Yeah.
And people are watching us. They're trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And he said, "Thank you," because that was only the second or third time he'd ever been thanked for his service
Oh,
since he got out.
wow.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
I've had that happen a few times. Another memorable one it was actually the same Walgreens. I used to do a lot of Walgreens, and there's just a short statured Marine because it said retired U.S. Marine. And I'm like, all right. Well, I introduced myself, and
How do you know a person's a Marine? Don't worry, they'll
it,
tell you.
Yeah.
exactly. But he was
Just
wearing
like
a
how
red hat.
somebody's a pilot, don't worry, they'll tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. He introduced myself to him, told him what I did, and wanted to thank you for service. And he said, and I don't do this to get anything from anybody. I don't charge the veterans for the coins. It's just what I get out of it is listening to their stories and their pride and thank because he said, what, give me your address. I want to mail you one of my coins. I'm like, okay. 2 weeks later, I don't know if you ever heard of Major General James Livingston. He was a Congressional Medal of Honor recipient. Sent me one of his Medal of Honor Society coins.
Oh wow.
Cool.
I'm doing this. I've had the opportunity. I also have a first responder coin that celebrates police officers on one side and the law enforcement on the other side.
Talk
There's law
about
enforcement.
all the coins that you're making for the 250 and where you're gonna be at.
Okay. So um, real quick history. Last Veterans Day, I spent the Marine Corps' 249th birthday at the Iwo Jima, handed out about 200 coins to the Marines there. I went to the Vietnam War Memorial, same thing, met a bunch of Vietnam vets, and found out that there are 8 women's names on the Vietnam War Memorial wall. I didn't know if you all knew that. There's actually
Wow.
8 women on that wall. Um, then I went to Arlington National Cemetery, And after witnessing the changing of the guard and some wreath laying ceremonies, I approached one of the sergeants. This is the coolest thing. I said, "Hey, this is what I do. I was wearing my shirt. I'd like to meet some of the sentinels." They let me downstairs into their quarters, and I got to meet the 8 sentinels that were on duty, and I left 30 coins for the entire regiment.
Wow, that's
So
cool.
I've made it. My mission is to go back every year and celebrate the Marine Corps birthday and Veterans Day. So I designed a 250th anniversary Marine Corps coin. It's the exact duplicate replica, 2¼ inch tall, of the Iwo Jima Memorial. It's 3D. It's got UV screen printed on it to replicate the exact coloring of the memorial. I also designed a 250th anniversary coin for the Navy, which, go Navy, our birthday is
Woohoo.
in
October
October,
13th.
October
Yep.
13th. It's a 2½ inch tall coin. And when we're done, I think I got your email. Yeah, I got your email. I'll send you guys all pictures of the coins. Um, and so on the front it says United States Navy. On the bottom it says 10/13/1775 to 10/13/2025. And then the bottom rocker it says fair winds and following seas. On the front it's got the Navy logo with 6 different classes of ships silhouetted.
Cool.
I did a 250-year Army coin where in 1775 it was the Continental Army. And so on the side rocker it says 17, and another side rocker says 75. It says Continental and Army on the bottom, and then in the middle it's got the 3 states that provided troops for the first Continental Army, and then 2 cross flags, the current U.S. flag and the flag that was flown back then. Um, and then I just did an Air Force coin with the help of Rhonda, and it just says United States Air Force. The Air Force symbol on the front is 3D, and it's got the 6 plane diamond formation of the Thunderbirds on the back, which is 3D, with the smoke trails coming out the back.
Oh, cool.
Um, then one thing that I realized a couple weeks ago on Vet Nations Live on a Saturday is there was one group of people that I keep forgetting about. It's the families that are left behind when the soldiers go downrange to serve.
Yeah.
And I think it's just as important to honor their services and sacrifice. So I designed a special coin. The front of it's of a house with a blue star flag on the door. It's got a yellow ribbon on the wall, a yellow bird in the tree, a big bay window with this black silhouette of a woman holding a baby and the hand of a child looking out the window waiting for their service member to come home.
Wow.
The back of the coin is got a wavy United States flag on the background. In the middle ground is just a bunch of gold silhouettes of women, children, men, and then in the foreground is a black silhouette of a male soldier and a female soldier facing their family members and giving the salute. And then there's a quote on the bottom that I wrote. I can't remember what it is. That's going to be given to the family members.
That's awesome.
What's that?
I said that's awesome.
And it's just so my mission, the goal I have right now is I want to take 250 250 coins, the Marine Corps coins, to the Iwo Jima Memorial on the 250th birthday and hand them out to the Marines that I meet. All I can say is, if you're a Marine, you're there, and you got some guy that just comes up to you wearing this shirt saying, "Hey, thank you for serving as U.S. Marine. Let me give you this coin," and it's a coin the exact shape, coloring, and everything of the Iwo Jima Memorial. How freaking cool would that be?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
that's
And
James, you mentioned your nonprofit. Does your nonprofit, is this how you're allowed to make your coins and to hand them out? Is that through your nonprofit, or is that
well,
something completely different?
I just started the nonprofit, so I've got my EIN number and I've got all the
Okay.
licensing from the state of South Carolina. I filed for 501c19 status, which is a veterans nonprofit
Yes.
that deals with veterans. There's one big caveat: is 3/4 of the board members has to be veterans or veteran service related. One of the girls that was going to be on the board, her husband, ex-husband, or her husband's buried at Arlington, so that qualified. But so no, I haven't done any in the last 2 years of these coins. I've probably spent 13 grand all
Yeah.
out of my own pocket. I hadn't done any fundraising. That's how important this mission is for me. Is I make good money, and if this is the way to honor our veterans and families, this is it's just what I do.
Now, do you have your business where somebody, if they wanted you to design a coin for them, that you design coins for companies or businesses, or
Oh
you
yeah.
just solely do it by yourself?
Well, no. Matter of fact, I don't know if you ever heard of Run for the Wall. It's a veterans motorcycle run that starts in California. They end up in the Vietnam War Memorial. One through TikTok, Vet Nations. Like there's a guy named Cowboy
Right,
introduced me
right
to
to the wall.
Ride to the Wall.
Yeah,
Or the,
that's what Nick is saying.
Yeah,
okay,
Baby girl.
right to the wall. Yeah,
okay. So the southern route, one of the platoon leaders, the fourth platoon
Oh,
leader, asked
Baker.
me, says, "Hey,
My
can
bad.
you design a coin?"
yeah,
And I designed a coin for him, and he just ordered 200 of them from the company that I use in Florida. Um, and they were so impressed that they've invited me to be a special guest at their meeting in Chattanooga, Tennessee in May. And he says, what, how can we, I spent a lot of time doing it. He says, what can we do for you? Give me a coin. That's all I ask.
yeah,
I don't charge, people that I've designed half a dozen coins. And all I ask is when you get them or you buy them, just send me a coin. Just
Do
that's
you have a website up and running yet, or
Yes.
a
Yes.
GoFundMe or anything like that?
I have a website up and running, and it's got some pictures, and it's got the mission statement and some videos that I've done. Uh, it's Heroes is spelled wrong because I forgot the extra e, like it, but it's
H E
Heroes.
R O.
It's HEROS of
Uh-huh.
America Beyond.com.
Beyond.com.
Dot com.
Okay, I'm putting that on my chat.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
uh, the shirt, it's just because I was so excited, and even my federal EIN number forgot the extra e. So there's
Oh, there you
it.
go. It's the same
No, no, don't, you don't
color.
say that. You say that it was taken, and so you had to misspell it to get it to work. That's why. You
No,
didn't
I would
forget
just,
it.
it's like,
That
I,
they only allow you to do it that way.
yeah. But on the website, there's a link tree link, that people, if they want to donate or they want to buy a coin or something, like they can. But right now, if people do that, great. If they don't, my whole thing is, it's just this is what I do. I mean, there are times where I'm at a grocery store and I see a veteran that's struggling to pay for the groceries. I paid for their groceries for them. Just
Oh
paid for
yeah,
them and call it. That's just what I do. Um, I'm not looking for applause, and I'm not looking for attaboys, and that's why when you approach me about doing this, I'm like, okay. But then I've had some people tell me that getting the word out, you
well,
recognize it can get
what
people to help you proceed with the mission, and that's
what
where
you're
I
doing
have
is
trouble asking for
important.
help.
What
yeah,
Yeah.
you're doing is important, and it's just like it's bringing attention to light that this does help with like our mental health. Like you said, when you ran into that Vietnam vet at Walgreens, it meant a lot. And so, your mission comes from the heart. You're very passionate about it, and
Mhm.
it's about veterans, and it's helping veterans.
And that,
And it'll help other people who are watching our show or listening to our show on the radio.
and yeah, and that's why I do it. I don't, like I said, it's just I've had people want to send me money. I was like, no, 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 I'm okay, and I've got it. But I don't know how else to explain it. It's just something that I live and I breathe to do this. I
Hmm.
mean, if that one Vietnam veteran that I met at the Walgreens, who knows where his mind was at,
Right.
and in giving him that coin, he smiled, he cried, he smiled, he had to giddy up in his step, and I've had other veterans where, it says, you just made my day doing this.
yeah.
That's why I do this, is to listen to their stories. And 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 that's just, I can only hope that my dad is up in heaven right now looking down on me, just smiling, saying, what, that's my son.
Oh, I'm sure he is. We talked before the show, James, and I appreciate you sharing your story as we get close to wrapping this up. One thing we talk about with post traumatic stress syndrome is there's triggers out there, and you have to learn how to deal with those triggers. And sadly, we had an incident here on base last night that tragically. One of the maintenance workers who works nights had a massive heart attack out here in the parking lot. And we talked about this earlier on the show with you being an EMT, and it was sad to see them worked on him. They worked on him so hard. The
Mhm.
Americans did that were here, the first responders, and then the Italians showed up, and then they worked on him. And then it was kind of interesting that they brought the family on base. I didn't. I guess maybe Italians do something different, and they put put the gentleman into the ambulance, still parked in the parking lot. And all the family members went in there and said goodbye to him. Is a very touchy, moving moment. Um, but for me, that was a hard trigger for me because in 2009, I witnessed a boat hitting a vessel out in Chesapeake Bay and saved 3 out of the 4 fishermen and attempted to do CPR in the water. And just watching that, it really affected me. I didn't sleep at all last night. That's probably why I look like shit today. But, when you have those triggers or when you have trauma and something like that happened, it was a horrible accident. Actually, me and a couple of the spouses on base here have coordinated, to buy flowers and bring them to the funeral. So I'm actually going to take them to the church tomorrow because the funeral is tomorrow. That's another reason they have funerals quick here. And so I'm going to about
Yeah,
11 o'clock. I'm going
that's
to take
quick.
the funeral. Yeah, it was. I was surprised.
Usually they take like
Um,
a whole week to
they
prepare
don't
the
do embalming
body.
here. They don't embalm.
Hmm. Oh, okay.
So I guess that's why they have to be quick. But anyway, so I'm gonna go pick up flowers, and then I'm gonna arrange for the family to have free meals at Kinda at the restaurant that I work at.
Oh, nice.
As they go through this time. But it's just a way of giving back. No matter what country and your way you live, kindness always spreads out. But for me, if somebody out there who's suffered trauma, who's been through something, you never know what's going to trigger you, and you
Oh,
never
definitely.
know seeing something's going to affect you. And it had a pretty profound effect on me. Now, I know myself well enough and I do things to help with my triggers, and it's important, right? And so it's just like with you and your coins and how passionate you are, and Lynn doing the show and all the things that you do with the Reverend Warriors. When you do get triggered, uh, something I had to learn, and we talked about this earlier on the podcast, is not really asking for help, but talking about what triggered you and why it triggered you. And sometimes just having that conversation with a close friend. I know with Veterans Trash Talk, the Facebook pages, there's somebody always out there 24/7, and that's kind of how we got started. That talk to veterans and things because you never know what's going to trigger you,
Mhm.
and then how you deal with those triggers once they happen.
Hmm.
And I my hats off to all the people here. There were people that came out of the building that had no shoes on, that were trying to help this gentleman. A lot of people knew this gentleman because obviously we lived on base for 3 years. He was 64 years old, so thoughts and prayers out to his family. But it's just important that if you see something and it bothers you, have a conversation with somebody, especially somebody that you trust, because it's very important. I think.
Exactly. You got to, and for me, a big trigger for me is just um, people saying negativity towards me, because I grew up with that from my stepdad, is, just being
Hmm.
negative towards me and saying, I'm not going to amount to anything. And what I realized is when I get that, it happens. Somebody said something the other day. It was a veteran that it was really skeptical, was wondering how the shoe was going to fall. What did I want from him? I was like, nothing. But it upset me a lot. And then what I did is I just grabbed a handful of coins, went grocery shopping and just started handing them out. And by the end of that half hour, I was on cloud nine. It's
Yeah,
just, it's just, I don't, other than I know you can see it. It's just something I love doing. It's just,
yeah,
I've seen veterans smile and people and that's just what it is for me. That's the payment I get.
yeah.
I don't need them
Well,
to
you
give me
change your
money.
perspective, right? You didn't sit at home. You didn't dwell on it. You didn't constantly run the train circle that you run around when you have anxiety and things get built up in your brain. You go in that downward spiral. You're like, hey, look, I'm going to get up and go hand out coins because that brings me joy. It brings me
Mhm.
happiness. And by doing that, you're actually rewiring your brain. People don't realize this. When you suffer trauma and you've gone through trauma, and Lynn, you've gone through your own trauma, MST and other things, is you have to learn how to deal with that. And you can rewire your brain. You can fix yourself. It's absolutely possible. You just got to find a good, positive way to do that. And one thing that we talked about in our podcast is that when you are in recovery or when you're doing something and you have a setback or you relapse, that's not necessarily a negative thing. I think it's a positive thing because it gives you a new starting point. And from that new starting point, you know what not to do to go back and doing it again.
Exactly.
Yep.
But with that, we're going to get the show wrapped up. James, do you have any last words before we end out the show?
No, I just appreciate your all's time and allow me to, tell my story
Oh,
and, get the
absolutely.
word out that, this is just what I do. And if anything learns is you never know who a veteran is. You never know what their stories are
Yeah.
like. And if you see one, all they want is just say, hey, thank you for their service. talk to them, let them tell their story. And that means the world to them, because
Yeah.
that veteran could be in a crisis mode and they're not knowing what's going to, they might do something. And by somebody reaching out and talking to them, or anybody that could be in crisis, just be their friend, just be a sounding board,
Oh, absolutely.
let them talk. But I appreciate you all for reaching out and
Absolutely.
let me talk about this.
Oh, anytime.
And don't forget his website, guys. It's heroesofamerica.beyond.com. HEROS.
That's
Heroes
because
of
the hero
America
spoke correctly
Beyond.
was taken already.
Yeah. But
So
one last thing I say is everybody, including your producer, because I believe he's a Marine. Make
yes.
sure I get a good
Sadly, he
mailing.
is.
Email me a mailing address, because I'd like to send you all copies of the current coins, and I want to make sure your producer. Is it Cliff?
No, Chris.
Chris.
Chris, sorry.
Yeah.
Whoops.
He's
Yeah, I'm
CC'd on
Cliff.
the
Chris
email.
is the producer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure that he gets one of the Marine Corps coins. The first batch is going to be labeled numbered 1 through 250, and then I'm going to produce them after that. But yeah, I want to make sure he gets one, just to thank him for his service and what he's doing for you all now.
Well,
Just
we have your contact information on the email, so we'll make sure that you get that. Lynn, do you have any updates on the Reverend Warrior, or what's going on there? What's
So
that going?
Irreverent Warriors just finished one of their hikes out at Puerto Rico this past Saturday, and I heard it was wild and crazy and so much fun. I had a couple of my people out of Jack's Beach. They went to the hike, so they just now getting back on the airplane this morning to get back here. Next week is South Florida. That is in Fort Lauderdale. So they're gonna be having their hike then. And then other than that, just go on the Irreverent website page. So it's irreverentwarriors.com. And
Mhm.
our mission is we bring veterans together using humor and camaraderie to improve mental health and prevent veteran suicide. And what other way to prevent veteran suicide than getting out there with your fellow veterans? Nobody's a stranger. We're all brothers and sisters, and we're all in this
Oh,
together.
absolutely.
So
And what a great organization. And with that, as you guys know, as I said earlier on the podcast, Reads Across America, we got the QR code up there. You can scan that. And for little as $5, you can donate a wreath to ensure that it is memorialized, during the holiday season. And just like I said earlier on, along with that, Reads Across America Radio replays my podcast at Fridays at 8 p.m. and Sundays at 10 p.m. Super easy to find. You just download your iHeart Radio app, your TuneIn app, or your Odyssey app and search for Reads Across America Radio for not only my great program or Lynn and I's great program, but also all the great podcasts they have out there. Along with it, we got the Veterans to Mortgage. With all these sponsors, it allows us to do what we do and continue our mission in saving veterans out there and giving them a voice that maybe some of them don't have a voice. So, hey, if you're thinking about refinancing your house, scan that QR code. Like I said, interest rates are probably going to start coming down, and so maybe it'd be a good time to refinance, or maybe you want to do a little remodel on your house. Or maybe, hey, you want to move to Florida, or maybe down to South Carolina or Lower Alabama or Central Florida. But hey, you can scan the code there for PCS to Paradise, and maybe you can find a new place to live. Along with that, my book is still available on my website. I don't think my green screen will let you see it, but you can go out to my website. There you go, cliffordbauman.com. You can get my Mental Health Warrior book. And I still have it on sale there, but also you can find it any place where you get your books at. But it is a little bit cheaper on my website, and I do sign them and I do mail them out. But hey, with that, we are our brothers and sisters keepers. Let's watch out for each other, and everybody, you guys have a great week, and thanks everybody for tuning in.